That's not what I read. The true sign of the apocalypse is someone that dumb has a law degree. Worse, if your name has the word sun in it, there's no excuse for not knowing how an eclipse works. But it's no surprise that Joy is the one who understands science. She's been on the science diet for years.
No, nothing really comes to mind. I was like, Shijing, listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be, this should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last, they call them Hitler, they call these things, America rejected them. And instead of coming back and saying, we lied, they instead are now doubling down. So let her keep doing it, because if she keeps that up, we're going to keep getting the Senate and probably the House and the White House, because people see right through your lies. So keep doing what you're doing. Game ball to Sunny.
Sunny Hostin just got hit with a takedown so intense from Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus that it looked like she was seconds away from filing a complaint against reality itself. What started as another confident hot topic rant suddenly spun into a dramatic collapse that no one saw coming. And honestly, Sunny has never fallen apart on screen with this level of force before. Gutfeld came in armed with sharp, polished sarcasm. Tyrus arrived with solid evidence that landed harder than expected. And Sunny, well, she delivered a meltdown that shook the moment like a wobbly chair sliding across a slick floor. If anyone ever believed daytime TV stayed calm, this exchange proved the opposite, because the impact felt powerful enough to crack the table on The View itself. Get ready, because everything twists into chaos in seconds.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from Sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from Europe.
Sunny Hostin sat at that familiar table dressed in high-powered confidence and polished Chanel, ready to deliver another dramatic lecture, as if she were auditioning to become the professor of performative outrage at some imaginary elite academy. But instead of receiving admiration or applause, she walked directly into a collision with cold, sharp reality brought in by Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus from an entirely different studio, which somehow made every point they delivered feel even more intense. One moment she was speaking with total certainty, acting like her view was the only truth that mattered. And the next moment, the internet turned her long monologue into a viral meme titled, "When Delusion Meets Data," proving how fast a bold performance can collapse when confidence runs straight into actual information. The shift happened so quickly, it felt like watching a balloon pop in slow motion, leaving the entire room buzzing with shock.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that.
It didn't even feel like The View anymore. It turned into a full-scale roast, and Sunny Hostin walked straight into it without a hint of protection, while the heat kept rising by the second. Gutfeld didn't need to step into the studio to break down her claims. One viral moment, sharp logic, and a steady stream of sarcasm were enough to slice through everything she said. And Tyrus didn't have to raise his voice. He simply increased the pressure with such calm precision that it felt like watching someone quietly stack explosives under a paper house without anyone noticing until it burst. While Sunny pointed her finger from her talk show throne, Tyrus laid out receipts that made her entire argument look fragile enough to rip apart like thin tissue in a storm. And this wasn't the first time she used her seat on The View like a dramatic confession booth nobody requested, because she often speaks as if she's narrating the collapse of society one brunch menu at a time.
Sure, all that, and the price of butter. Sunny gets the game ball. If it wasn't for her, asking that question, it might have been a closer election. But when nothing really comes to mind, I was like, Shijing, listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be, this should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last, they call them Hitler, they call these things, America rejected them. And instead of coming back and saying, we lied, They instead are now doubling down.
She once boldly insisted that certain voters of color couldn't truly understand their own political choices unless those choices conveniently matched hers, as if she alone had the authority to decide what counted as a valid opinion. In her world, anyone who disagrees must be confused, misguided, or somehow unworthy of joining her imaginary book club of approved viewpoints. But when someone keeps speaking from the top of a moral high horse, those stilts eventually start to shake, and sooner or later someone knocks them out from under them with surprising force. That's exactly what Gutfeld and Tyrus managed to do without ever stepping on the set, firing off uncomfortable truths from a distance, while Sunny reacted like someone who brought a foam bat to a chainsaw duel she didn't see coming.
Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sunny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter. So instead, let's check out this clip from Monday's episode of The View when the ladies put their science caps on and discuss the solar eclipse.
What made the whole moment even more unbelievable was how quickly the show seemed to crumble under the pressure, almost as if the studio lights dimmed the second real facts slipped into the conversation. Yet the co-hosts still clung tightly to their script like backup dancers in a musical called Delusion, trying to keep the performance alive while Whoopi gave a slow, serious nod. Ana Navarro sighed dramatically as though she had just watched society collapse, and Joy Behar tilted her head with the calm curiosity of someone pretending to listen while secretly planning her lunch. That's the strange charm of The View. It's less of a panel and more of a synchronized routine where agreement is expected. Disagreement feels like a dangerous spark, and facts get pushed aside like items you're told not to carry through airport security. If you pay attention, you'll notice that every time Sunny says something wildly off track, the others stare with the patient excitement of golden retrievers waiting for treats, nodding in perfect rhythm like there's a hidden metronome behind the camera. And when the conversation starts falling apart, the show immediately switches to emotional appeals, dramatic claims of victimhood, or a sudden unrelated headline meant to distract the audience just long enough to cover the damage. Whenever criticism hits too hard, they shout misinformation, sprinkle in buzzwords like dangerous rhetoric, and wrap the moment in polished elitism to soften the blow. But this time the collapse was far too big, too obvious, and simply too loud to hide.
Oh no, nothing really comes to mind. I was like, Ching, listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be, this should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last, they call them Hitler, they call these things, America rejected them. And instead of coming back and saying, we lied, they instead are now doubling down. So let her keep doing it, because if she keeps that up, we're going to keep getting the Senate and probably the House and the White House, because people see right through your lies. So keep doing what you're doing. Game ball to Sunny.
Because Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus didn't bother following the unusual daytime rules of The View, they stepped in from the 5 with the steady confidence of a comedy duo, armed with common sense and cultural awareness, dropping reality checks so casually, it felt like they were handing out reminders rather than completely dismantling an argument. There was no shouting, no dramatic arm waving, just calm and precise comments that sliced straight through Sunny Hostin's points, while she reacted like someone trying to swat facts out of the air before they landed. And nothing reveals more than watching a person who built a career on long monologues delivered into applause suddenly face complete silence, the kind of silence that exposes every weak spot in seconds. Sunny will, of course, return to that table the next day with a new angle, another long speech, and that familiar intense stare. But deep down she knows that when a reality check hits this loudly, it doesn't simply disappear. You feel it echoing long after. That's exactly what happened as the panel unknowingly pushed the conversation into self-destruction, turning what began as another predictable let's blame the world moment from Sunny Hostin into unexpected comedic chaos the moment Gutfeld and Tyrus entered the discussion metaphorically and set the entire argument on fire with one tiny spark of logic no one on set was ready to handle.
I think that women, white women in particular, want to protect the patriarchy here because it's to their benefit. Yeah. They want to make sure that their husbands do well. They want to make sure that their sons do well. They want to make sure that their children do well. And they want to make sure that they do well. Most of the women in some of these studies are married white women, and they do fall in line with what their husbands are doing.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions? Yeah. Like you said, it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. So, but the problem with her is that she went full racist.
The topic was crime and policing in America, something Sunny Hostin attacks with the same fiery energy she usually reserves for lukewarm lattes or disappointing Yelp reviews, launching into what felt like an emotional TED Talk for the theatrically confused. Between dramatic sighs, finger-wagging, and sweeping claims, she painted policing as the root of every problem, crime as some misunderstood craft, and the real issue as simply the world refusing to listen to her enough. Classic Sunny, full of moral heat but nearly empty of facts, delivered with the confidence of someone who thinks a trending hashtag counts as real policy. Then Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus stepped into the conversation, uninvited, uninterested in theatrics, and much better prepared, offering calm responses backed with numbers and just enough sarcasm to collapse Sunny's argument instantly. Gutfeld opened with a sharp breakdown, pointing out that the loudest voices shouting "defund the police" often live nowhere near the neighborhoods that actually need police, using private security as normal while suggesting working-class communities try social workers instead, leaving Sunny blinking like someone forced to recite their Wi-Fi password on live TV. The room didn't just lose control in that moment, it lost the entire script as her argument deflated right in front of everyone.
It's not even that. And The View, you don't need to find Trumpers. You need to fire your race baiters.
Yeah.
You need to fire the two races. You've had people. You had a McCain on there. You've had people on there before, and you ran them off. So the racist ones who want to stick to this, Whoopi and Sunny, and was it Bette Midler? What's her name? Yeah, broke-ass Bette Midler. Fire them and bring people in. Maybe you could get McCain to come back. She was a Republican, but
Tyrus stepped in next, delivering a calm and steady breakdown filled with statistics that highlighted rising violent crime in cities that experimented with defunding policies, while also slipping in a sharp reminder about the celebrities who hire off-duty police officers even as they praise community-based safety. His approach was so relaxed, almost uninterested, like someone who has repeated the same facts hundreds of times to people who nod politely and then forget everything the moment a new trend appears on TikTok. Then Greg delivered the final blow, a single sentence that didn't just land, it hit like an explosion, and instantly the energy on The View shifted from bold debate to frantic damage control. Sunny tried pivoting with near-Olympic-level mental gymnastics, tossing out vague talking points while hoping no one noticed her argument had already gone up in flames on live television. But the internet caught it immediately, and the ratings did too. That's when Tyrus, the calm storm, fired off one more truth-filled point that shattered her remaining defenses, proving he didn't need to shout, wave his arms, or act dramatic. He simply presented facts with quiet precision, leaving the show scrambling to restore control and balance.
the problem is that you have to go after the racist people. And if the CEO goes, you know what, I'm not going to allow a woman on my show or man that will go after white America and talk about them like dogs. That doesn't represent our ideals or values for anyone. And get rid of those people, and this will clear up real quick. So do you have to actually look in the mirror and clean up your own backyard and get the racist people out? Because that's who you allowed in. You allowed black racist on TV who could just go all day and say anything about white people. And I guess lo and behold, they forgot that there's a lot of people at home, white people at home during the day that are not watching your show anymore. So just clean it up.
Yeah, you know, Emily.
He delivered his points with a street-level sharpness that only comes from experiencing real life without the polished filter of media privilege, creating a contrast so strong it nearly shook the entire studio. This wasn't scripted commentary designed to impress the camera. It was direct truth wrapped in firm, no-nonsense logic that hit harder than anything Sunny Hostin expected. Tyrus aimed right where it hurt, not just challenging her beliefs, but exposing the privilege she and other media personalities hide behind, especially when they claim to speak for people they barely understand. While Sunny played the role of voice of the oppressed, Tyrus reminded everyone of a harsh reality. She has about as much in common with the average working-class person as she does with a reality TV celebrity, and no one truly represents people in difficult situations when their biggest concern is brunch with Anna Navarro. Tyrus said all this almost casually, turning it into the kind of truth that forces someone to rethink every argument they've made, especially when the person speaking is wearing a simple shirt while Sunny sits there trying to wear moral superiority like a giant cape. Her reaction? Complete silence. Nothing but crickets as she scrambled inside trying to save her dignity, while Joy Behar quietly whispered, "Abort mission," in the background like an off-screen prompt no one dared challenge.
Sausage maker Johnsonville is recalling more than 42,000 pounds of pork sausage for possible contamination with plastic fibers. Fortunately, authorities were able to track all 42,000 pounds to a single location in New York City.
When the facts started hitting Sunny Hostin harder than she expected, she switched to her usual escape routine, transforming instantly from confident intellectual force into a self-declared victim of hostility, as if she had been unfairly targeted instead of confronted with her own contradictions. The moment Tyrus and Greg delivered sharp, fact-based reality checks, Sunny acted like someone who starts an argument and then cries the second someone pushes back, accusing them of being inflammatory even though she had been stirring the flames long before anyone else spoke. The truth was simple. Sunny had already set the entire conversation on fire while pretending to watch from a safe distance, and she enjoys throwing punches only when she's sure no one will return them. Her whole posture of moral superiority collapsed the moment she realized she was standing on quicksand instead of solid ground, and you could practically hear her internal panic shouting, "Wait, I thought I was the one giving the lectures. How is this happening to me?" The irony was impossible to ignore. The instant reality hit too hard, she shifted from debate to victimhood, leaving the woman who often criticizes others for lacking empathy suddenly claiming she was being attacked, creating a spectacle that stunned everyone watching.
So that makes Sunny Hostin, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all. Because everyone knows the moon caused the eclipse, which is controlled by the view's gravitational pull.
And then there was the audience, the poor, confused group caught in the middle of this live TV disaster, unsure whether to clap, laugh, or hide under their seats as the show spiraled completely out of control. As expected, social media exploded within minutes, turning Sunny Hostin's meltdown into the newest viral meme on Twitter, where the internet did what it always does best: roast the rich, the powerful, and the overly confident until the moment becomes part of digital history. Suddenly, Sunny wasn't just a co-host having a rough day. She became a symbol of how quickly a wall of self-righteousness can collapse the moment it meets actual facts instead of applause. After all that chaos, you'd think The View might address the situation, maybe even reflect. But instead, they used their favorite strategy: act like nothing happened and keep moving. The next episode opened cheerfully with a segment about dogs doing yoga, as if a stretching puppy could magically erase the meltdown everyone had watched the day before. The show behaved completely normal, sliding from Sunny's tense collapse into celebrity chatter, with no mention of the conflict, no accountability, and a level of polished denial so strong it could win a gold medal. It's unbelievable how effortlessly they maintain that illusion, and even more exhausting to imagine doing it while claiming to be experts on every topic under the sun.
Of this, will she continue to do that when she is now one of them, Dana? And it is funny, she is so wrapped up in identity and she had no idea who she was.
But here's why all of this matters. The show is one of the clearest examples of a media echo chamber, a place where confident panelists sit comfortably congratulating each other for sharing opinions built more on emotion than real facts, creating an environment where disagreement feels like a threat instead of a chance for real discussion. Gutfeld and Tyrus didn't just roast Sunny Hostin, they exposed the entire style of commentary the show thrives on, revealing how disconnected it can become when people pretend to speak for the working class while sitting safely in a studio, far from the realities they claim to represent. Sunny's meltdown wasn't just a personal slip. It was a public reminder that arrogance and long emotional speeches can't silence the truth forever, no matter how confidently delivered. Looking back, the pattern was obvious. Sunny began with a smug tone. Gutfeld calmly tore apart her claims with solid facts. Tyrus followed with even more hard-hitting truths. And then Sunny collapsed into a tangled mix of words that couldn't hide how badly she had lost the exchange. In the end, it almost felt poetic, because in the constant struggle between reality and the show's tightly protected bubble, reality finally broke through, and it was absolutely stunning.